Welcome to Mother Earth News Audio. This is an audio article presentation by Bruce Ingram of his article, Verify Your Vegetation. Please enjoy.
My wife Elaine and I are enthusiastic pursuers of wild edibles throughout the year. These natural foods are healthy, tasty, and, well, free. What's more, gathering nature's bounty is a way to enjoy the outdoors and reap the benefits of exercise. However, there's a serious downside of wild foods. Some have lookalikes that flaunt a harsh taste or are even poisonous. Spot the differences between these plants and mushrooms to stay safe while foraging. Summer mushrooms, the heavenly and the hellish. Summer is a prime time to forage for choice edible mushrooms, such as chicken of the woods and smooth chanterelles. Unfortunately, these two delicious mushrooms have a rogue look-alike, the infamous and poisonous jack-o'-lantern mushroom. Let's take a closer look at these three fungi. Chicken of the woods, it's a species complex, is our favorite mushroom, regardless of the time of year. Last summer, for example, our son Mark and I were on our way to gather blackberries when I spied a dead oak covered with chicken of the woods mushrooms. For the next several minutes, I used a knife to sever some 2 dozen COWs, cows, what mushroom enthusiasts call chicken of the woods for short, from the hardwood. This bright orange and yellow fan shaped fungus can be as wide as a foot and can pale in color as it ages. Its wavy margins help with identifying it, as does its yellowish white flesh. Besides oaks, I've encountered chicken of the woods thriving on dead or dying ashes as early as mid May and as late as the 1st of November. Remarkably, after I'd stacked the cows like pizza boxes and was toting them back to my truck, I encountered a patch of smooth chanterelles. Their yellowish orange or light yellow caps can grow 4 to 5 inches wide, but most of the ones I've come across have been about half that width. These wavy cap shapes usually range from flatter with a slight depression in the middle to irregularly funnel shaped. A chanterelle's 2 to 3 inch stalks can be the same color as the caps, or creamy white. The fruity smelling flesh can be white or have a slightly yellow tint. Come summer, look for this species growing under oaks, but not on them. The white flesh of chicken of the woods and smooth chanterelles differ from the flesh of the jack-o'-lantern, which is usually orange or yellow and flaunts a nauseatingly sweet smell. Jacks always grow on broadleaf trees or over dead, buried wood, a distinct difference from smooth chanterelles. Jack-o'-lantern caps can measure as much as 8 inches across and feature a bright orange hue. It also tends to grow in clumps. The margins can be turned over or wavy as the fungus ages, and it has gills, whereas chicken of the woods has pores. Puffballs versus poisonous posers. Two of our favorite puffballs to eat are the gem-studded puffball and the pear-shaped puffball. The former found in summer and the latter come autumn. Last summer, I found my first gem-studded in mid-July when I was walking along an old logging road. 4 of them were growing on the side of the tote road, one of which had become darker and was emitting spores from its top. Actually, encountering a spore producing individual is a great way to learn you've encountered puffballs. To confirm the other 3 were still edible, I cut them in half and noted the solid, creamy white flesh. If a severed puffball of any species has a hint of brown or green inside, it's not fit for the kitchen, as spores have begun to form. Gem-studded puffballs are typically 1 to 2 inches across, and tiny spine-like projections mark the exterior. While gem-studded puffballs grow on the ground, the pear-shaped variety appears on dead or dying wood. By far, the majority I've gathered came from dead ashes, oaks, and even a few pines. Also known as the stump puffball because of its penchant for appearing on, of course, stumps. This fungus does indeed have a pear shape, although these pears are only about an inch wide. Pear-shaped puffballs often grow in large clumps. On a number of occasions, I've gathered several dozen at a time, although I had to discard several of them because they were producing spores. Of all the smaller puffball species I've encountered, the pear-shaped features the most appealing taste to me, a pleasant, earthy flavor. As is often the case with edible fungi, some poisonous posers look a little like small puffballs. So, how can you tell the difference? First, and most importantly, if a mushroom doesn't have solid white flesh, it's either not a puffball or it's a puffball that is now producing spores. My mushroom mentor, Jeff Huffman of Roanoke, Virginia, offers some more tips for gathering puffballs and identifying the lookalikes. He says to choose mature specimens and use basic mushroom identification methods to determine the species, such as examining the substrate, the type of habitat and range where a mushroom typically grows, color, and inside and outside appearance. Cut the mushroom egg in half and note how it looks. If you see gills, stipe, also known as a stalk, and the formation of the typical mushroom shape inside, it's not a puffball. In this case, it could be a mushroom from the large genus Amanita, which contains inedible and toxic mushrooms. Additionally, Jeff says, observe mushrooms that are at various stages of development. That way, you can more confidently identify puffballs. For example, young amanitas may not have developed their mushroom shape and gills inside the egg, so people may confuse them with edible puffballs if all they observe are the young ones, since edible puffballs and amanita eggs are both white on the inside. How else can we enjoy puffballs but remain safe? My basic rule is to never consume a mushroom new to me until I have an expert identify it. Then I only take a few small bites the initial time I eat it, because even edible mushrooms can sometimes cause people to experience stomach distress. Finally, consider joining local mushroom clubs and purchasing books. My favorite is the National Audubon Society Field Guide to Mushrooms, Flavorsome and the Foul. Three of the most common hickory trees are the shagbark, the mockernut, and the bitternut. The shagbark is one of the easiest trees in the forest to identify, with its rough, light gray, shaggy bark that looks to be peeling off in curved strips. Other traits include the tree's narrow crown, also the canopy, and approximately 2-inch tall green husk that turn brown when the light brown inner nut and its nut meat are ready to eat. I rank the black walnut and the shagbark as possessing the most fetching autumn nut meats, especially when added to homemade persimmon bread and pawpaw bread. The mockernut boasts excellent nut meat as well. This hardwood features gray, slightly furrowed bark and 7 or 9 pinnately compound leaflets. The husk is usually a little less than 2 inches long and often has a split in the middle. As is true with the shagbark hickory, Elaine has employed the mockernut's nut in various breads and cookies. No forager is going to want to use the bitternut hickory nut in any recipe. While I was writing this story, my friend Brady Price, who teaches at the same high school as I do, brought me a hickory nut without the husk to identify, thinking it came from a mockernut tree, as the globes of the two species are about the same size. I cracked the nut open, and Brady and I sampled the nut meat, and then we quickly spit it out and tried to wash the foul taste from our mouths. In short, the bitter nut isn't poisonous, but it comes by its name honestly. Bitternut trees sport broad crowns, gray bark, and 7 to 9 compound pinnate leaflets. But the best way to identify this hardwood is by its bright yellow buds at the end of slender twigs. Fine fall fruits and their lookalikes. Wild edible fall fruits flourish in many woodlots, but their lookalikes also exist at this time of year. Summer grapes and Virginia creepers have twined their way up the same hardwood on our southwest Virginia land, and it's easy to spot differences. Summer grapes feature bluish black globes about 1/4 inch wide. They begin to ripen in early September, and we gather them about a week later when they're still a little tart, a characteristic we like when turning them into jelly. Also, leaving those grapes on the vines longer than that risk losing them to numerous species of wildlife. Other identification markers of these grapes include the 5 inch or so oval leaves, which are dull green on the upper side and pale green on the lower, with a slightly hairy feel. Virginia creeper is also in the grape family and sports palm-like compound leaves with distinct five-toothed leaflets. Its fall color can be a flashy red or a more subdued yellow. The berries have a much lighter blue hue than that of summer grapes, which is important as creeper berries are toxic to humans. However, numerous species of songbirds and mammals consume those berries to no ill effects. Stay away from those creeper vines as well because they irritate the skin. Northern spice bush and flowering dogwood also have several features that can cause confusion. Both are primarily understory flora, although dogwoods can grow about twice as tall as spice bush, which is more of a shrub and often tops out at 6 to 12 feet high. Each also has small, oval, scarlet red drupes that wildlife consumes. Although, from my experience, creatures scarf up dogwood berries as soon as they ripen in early fall, whereas spice bush drupes often linger on their twigs well into winter. Humans can consume spice bush berries and they have a pleasant, peppery taste. When ground up, they add pizzazz to pumpkin pies and other baked goods. The 6 inch long and 2.5 inch wide shiny leaves are dark green, oval shaped, and grow in an alternate pattern. They can be ground and steeped to make a tea. However, the dogwood berries have a foul taste and rival a bitternut hickory on the bitterness scale. Dogwood leaves, which are oval and about 5 inches long and about half that wide, aren't edible, but they're a dazzler come autumn with their blazing colors. From midsummer to late summer and well into autumn, nature offers up a cornucopia of scrumptious mushrooms and fruits. Just make sure you know what you can gather and what you shouldn't. Here are also, in a little sidebar, 3 problematic fall fruits. It's just as important to know how to identify the plants that aren't edible as well as the ones that are. The horse nettle, pokeweed, and common elderberry are also part of the late summer and autumn landscape, and all produce berries, all of which have issues. Horse nettle is a member of the nightshade family and develops a yellow fruit that looks like a small tomato, which is poisonous. Indeed, every part of this plant is toxic, and the 4 inch or so alternate pinnate leaves even flaunt thorny edges. Pokeweed is a part of rural folklore, as the young spring shoots were often prepared as poke salad, a spring tonic. The truth is, however, that every part of this plant is toxic, although creatures from bears to blue jays consume the purple fruits, which grow like grapes on purplish red stems. The common elderberry also produces fruits, and though wildlife seek them out, they're poisonous to humans when eaten raw. The most mediocre tasting jelly Elaine has ever made came from elderberries, though in fairness to this plant, other folks have experienced success with these tiny purplish black berries, turning them into wine, jelly, and other desserts, as well as syrup for an immune system boost. The elderberry is a shrub-like understory tree. The berries grow in upright clusters, and the lance-shaped compound leaves are anywhere from 4 to 12 inches long. Other than the cooked ripe berries and cooked flowers, all parts of the elderberry plant are poisonous to humans. The end.
You can reach us at letters@motherearthnews.com with any comments or suggestions. To listen to more audio articles, go to the Mother Earth News and Friends podcast and look for audio article in the episode title, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Music for this reading is Hustle by Kevin MacLeod. Thanks for listening.